Welcome to the Report from Tucker Mountain. Tonight we're going to do a little film review, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about the new film from Denis Villeneuve, Dune 2. Stick around and listen. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about Dune 2. And I guess, we can talk about Dune 1 as well, because Dune 1 and 2 make up, his adaptation of the first novel by Frank Herbert, the famous Dune novel that is considered probably the greatest science fiction novel of all time. It's also considered the inspiration for Star Wars, which it pretty much is. If you actually know the novel and know the basic plotline, Star Wars is quite similar to it, and it rips off many various elements, so it's considered almost the, great achievement of science fiction. And, the new Dune film is quite fantastic. I was a fan of the Dune Part 1, and Dune Part 2 continues in the same direction. And I wanted to sort of talk about, I guess its kind of resonance for the new right, for the dissident right, obviously, which this report from Tiger Mountain is a part of. One of the interesting things about Dune is that it is essentially about a white messiah. Paul Atreides, who has various other names that he's called throughout the book and the film. He's called Paul Muad'Dib. That's like his name he assumes when he goes to Dune, and he's also called Lisain Al-Gaib, which is like the Fremen's name for like their messiah, and it's also called the Kwisatz Haderach, which is the Bene Gesserit name for the messiah. Now, the Bene Gesserit are a group of, I guess you would describe them as right-wing Catholic witches or nuns who are essentially involved in a breeding project to bring about, their version of the Messiah called the Kwisatz Haderach, who they believe they will control because they've basically controlled through eugenics the bloodlines of the various royal houses that are portrayed in Dune. Lady Jessica has Paul Atreides against the wishes of the Bene Gesserit, because the Bene Gesserits are only supposed to give birth to daughters until the time is right. And obviously she disobeys the commands of the Bene Gesserit, and she gives birth to Paul. And, Paul Atreides goes to Dune with his father, Duke Leto, and then there's this whole sort of civil war, and the Harkonnens betray the Atreides and kill the Atreides family, and Paul flees into the desert and joins up with the Fremen. The Fremen are sort of desert people that essentially are standing for the Muslims. So it's really a kind of Lawrence of Arabia story, it's about how a white savior kind of unites the Arab people. So, it's kind of interesting politically, because obviously with this whole Gaza situation, it's, and obviously the way the Muslim world is united against Israel, it makes one think, are the Harkonnens, is Israel the Harkonnens? I don't know, maybe it's meant to be. So it's very interesting. So, it has that going on, but in a strange way, it's sort of a critique of power, though. Like, if I could say what is it about, I would say Dune is about the terror of power, because Paul Atreides sort of has to become what he's fighting. Like the Harkonnens are portrayed as this greedy, psychotic, Eastern European people who are just almost inherently evil and destructive and murderous and duplicitous, and in a way, Paul Atreides Muad'Dib, the Kwisatz Haderach, or whatever you want to call him, he has to become sort of like that, and he uses the Fremen, and he leads them in a holy jihad. That rings a bell, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Against the Harkonnens, and he essentially seizes the emperor and becomes the emperor himself. But one of the things that happens between, and obviously this is not covered in the new film, but it happens in the novel, is that he becomes, essentially a genocidal maniac, and he kills approximately 70 billion people between Dune 1 and Dune 2. And in Dune 2, he talks about it. So, it's really, is Paul, Atreides an anti-hero? And I think to some extent he is. So I think Frank Herbert is making a comment on that, and I think he's also examining, the various nexuses of power. There's like the Spacing Guild, who require the spice which is mined on Dune for space travel. Obviously, this represents oil. The Fremen stand in for Muslims. I mean, there's a lot of resonance with what's going on at the moment, but the film is a kind of warning about power, and I think it is something that is interesting. And that to some extent, to defeat your enemy, you almost have to become like your enemy. And also it is revealed, obviously spoilers in this, it's also revealed that the Baron Harkonnen is Paul Atreides' grandfather. He's the father of Lady Jessica. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, Denis Villeneuve has done a spectacular job bringing this all to life. He shot it, I think, in the United Arab Emirates and another desert country near that. And, he's done a great job. It's a fascinating evocation of the novel, and it's got the approval of Brian Herbert, who's the son of Frank Herbert, who's also gone on to write about 10 or 15 Dune novels himself. So if you're fans of the book, I was a fan of the original David Lynch film, which you should all see, so make sure you go check that out, because that puts it all into about 2.5 hours. And Dune 1 and 2 is about 6 hours long, or 5.5 hours, so, it's for Dune fans, this is heaven. And, I saw it on the big screen, and I think I want to go see it in IMAX, which is apparently an even better way to see it. So go check it out. It gets the highest rating, but also reflect on what it says about power, and also how it, plays into the politics of the new right, the alt-right, the dissident right, whatever you want to call it. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's my Dune 2 review. Check it out.